Ready? Play.
Okay, final one on my list is Karolina Muchova against Iga Swiatek. If you had to pick a court, well, no, I think this is pretty easy. If you had to pick conditions that you would like, just if Karolina could choose anywhere, anytime, any place, it would basically be any grass court in the world, I guess, to play Iga on. But if it was away from grass, where would Karolina maybe? Well, I mean, she pushed her very close, obviously, in that French Open final. So, you know, maybe just somewhere on clay. Although maybe Karolina would go, let's go US Open, given her performances there. And
yeah, Dubai, Cincinnati, something like this, probably. Yeah.
And so, therefore, my I'm getting at basically is I would be extremely excited by this match if it was on about half of the tour. But there's a second half where I'd be less excited about, and maybe even a third of the tour where I'd be even less excited about, and maybe even 2 or 3 tournaments where I'd be like, Iga's a hot favorite here. And one of those would be Indian Wells.
Yeah, not sure. Obviously, Muchova is someone who has troubled Iga before. Definitely one of the more stylistically tricky matchups, just because, you know, she can do anything on the court, really. She can really take Iga away from these baseline patterns she loves and basically force her to go forward, or I don't know, just go forward herself, put that pressure on return. But I don't know, after seeing the United Cup, I know it was a pretty competitive straight setter for Swiatek, but considering this is also, her court, I just can't really go anywhere else than, you know, just say that Iga is probably going to take this one. Also, the first 2 matches, you know, Garcia, maybe I wasn't looking at in terms of being a threat. I know that this is another very stylistically dangerous matchup for Iga, but just considering that Caroline has had that break and stuff like that, I just wasn't really rating her chances highly. But Yastremska, I know she was crushing her opponents. She gave Jabeur 4 games. She was great in Dubai in the first set against Iga as well. You know, then collapsed, but the first set was good. And yeah, she just shows up in Indian Wells. I know that she was completely off her game, and you know, every single stroke was in defense. But that's kind of what we've been seeing on this court against Iga for the most part. I think since 2022, she is 18-1 in Indian Wells. Doesn't seem like the conditions.
That one loss, is there a, I don't want to say an asterisk, but was that the one against Rebecca and then she doesn't play?
Yeah, there's a slight asterisk. I mean, some people will say that it's more than we kind of consider it. Some people just say that, oh, this should not be looked at. Anyway, it was a 2-6, 2-6 loss to Rybakina, but it was a loss to Rybakina. And basically any other match has been, well, not in 2022, but since 23, basically any other match has been just a foregone conclusion. When she steps onto the court, wins the first 5 games, and then it's over. So I just can't possibly say that Muchova has a great chance here, even if the matchup is exciting. And it's always going to be just one where we're watching out to see what Karolina can do on the day and kind of what sort of an idea she has. But yeah, I just can't say it's possibly the closest of the 4 matches that we're talking about. No, I mean, definitely not.
What is the head-to-head, by the way?
3-1 right now. Muchova won their first match in 2019, which of course doesn't really matter. But after that, we had the French Open final, and we had the match in Cincinnati, was it 23, which was 3 sets as well. Yeah. So consistently Montreal. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if it was that part of of the Canada CC double, but also the United Cup, of course, this year, which 6-4, 6-3, or 6-4, 6-4. I don't remember, but it was very, very competitive. It was almost 2 hours, I think, for a 6-4, 6-3.
Yeah. I'm expecting a similar scoreline here. I'll go with Iga, maybe just with 1 break advantage in each set to progress. Before I bring this to a close, I think there's a feeling that I'm getting that the surface change is probably a bit more than a feeling. It seems to be backed up by some evidence, certainly from the players, from what they're saying, that actually this year doesn't feel any different to any other year. Looking at the way, in terms of the ball bouncing higher, I think there may be a difference in terms of the courts. I've heard that in other years as well. I know Novak highlighted that difference, for example, on the practice courts compared to the number 1 court. But as a result, and seeing in particular the way Iga is playing, I guess, whereas before the tournament, because of Iga's form this year, because she hasn't won a title since the French Open, I'm not even sure when her last final was. Can you remember her last final? She's not made a final this
Well,
year, has she?
United Cup doesn't count, I suppose.
No. No.
Cincinnati, was that a final against Sabalenka or a semi? That was a semi, right? Yeah, so I guess Roland
No, maybe
Garros.
it was the final. Maybe it was the final.
I guess it's Roland Garros then, though, right? If not the Sabalenka Cincinnati match. No, Cincinnati final was Pegula Sabalenka, just like the
you're
US
right.
Open, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's Roland Garros, unless we're forgetting
fine.
about something. Well, the Olympics was bronze medal, I guess, so that
Grass,
doesn't count
no.
either.
Yeah.
Grass obviously just one event, and she
Then
didn't
she
go
missed,
that.
didn't she, a period after the US Open?
Yeah,
So,
she missed the entire Asian swing. So WTA finals, she is 2-1, but doesn't get out of groups. So yeah, United Cup, I don't think we count that. So
no.
although she won 4 matches and then lost the 5th one, so sorta the United Cup, I guess. I mean, it works just like as a regular event in this case, right?
I mean, Poland, did they make the semis, Billie Jean King Cup? But if they'd made the final, would you then
that was
be
the
saying...
semis, yeah.
Yeah, but if they had made the final, would you say that's Iga Swiatek in a singles
Probably
final?
less than the United Cup, simply because at the Billie Jean King Cup, there was 3 matches that she needed to get to the final. And that was 4 at the United Cup, and also kind of like the quality of the opposition at the United Cup. Of course, not talking about Marin Helgo, sorry, but Muchova, Bolter, Rybakina, and then Goff, like in a final. It sort of counts to me as a final in this sense, but it didn't necessarily like have to if it was other opponents. Let's just say that. In this very specific case, I am willing to say that it was more kind of like a final. But yeah, it's pretty shocking she hasn't made one since Roland Garros. And actually, like the way that the draw is shaping up, I think the semifinals might be the toughest match she gets in the event. So,
yeah, I mean, so with the form plus the court surface change going into the tournament, I was probably taking the field over Iga, whereas it pretty much would have always been the other way around in the last 2 or 3 years. And similarly, for similar reasons, same with Carlos on the men's side. I just had 1 or 2 more doubts. Not so much about form, of course, but the change. However, having seen Iga demolish Garcia, and in particular Yastremska, and given what the players are saying, and there may even have been some stuff coming out about court speed stuff as well, that the conditions are so sort of prevailing, and prevailing being the key word when it comes to the wind, that the atmosphere there, if that makes sense, is far more significant in how quick the courts are than the actual surface itself. And as you say, Iga obviously playing Muchova, who's got 3 in 1 head-to-head, and it's 3 in a row against her, and these conditions, I think, will favour Iga, so I'll go for her in straight sets. Then it would be Qin Wenjiang or Marta Kostyuk in the next round. I think Iga would fancy her chances definitely against Kostyuk. Qin Wen would be a bit trickier, but I would make Iga the favourite. And then, so who's her semi-final potentially against?
well,
Rybakina,
the 4 players that we were talking about, so likely Rybakina or Andreeva, and that I think could be the toughest match she gets. I think we've kind of lucked Swiatek playing in 23 on the way to the semis, and also last year on the way to the title. She really didn't play any like elite opposition in Indian Wells. What was it last year? Sakari in the final, Kostyuk semi, Wozniacki in the quarters, I think.
Maybe.
So,
oh wow.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten any like proper, Swiatek Sabalenka, Swiatek Rybakina showdowns. I mean, we can definitely add Andreeva to this group if she also makes the semis here. So yeah, I'd love to see a match like this. I'm not saying that Iga won't be the favorite. I do think she is the main favorite. She's just not as overwhelming of a, title contender as she was in 2024.
For that, well, the final though, if it's Madison Keys or Sabalenka, I guess they would counter your argument of being the
yeah. I mean, Coco could count as well if she
gets that far and starts playing well. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
My mistake. I left the loop on. I was about to say, Vanch, are we going to get this done in one take? Well, no, we're not. But Jasmine Paolini did get it done last night, albeit in more than one take, right?
Yes. Several takes in that 4-all game in the third set.
Yeah, that was wild. I saw you praising her and just basically saying how it's going to be very difficult for her to match. Oh, I can see some. Do I see some rain in the air in Indian Wells? They just showed up. They showed a light, and it just had some water or some precipice going across. So we'll have to keep an eye on that if it's something to take into consideration. But yeah, just quickly on Paolini, you did say that you thought it would be difficult for her to replicate last year's efforts, but or at least results. But she's not lacking in any effort right now.
Yeah, she's just being like really gritty and coming through these matches against, you know, players like she wasn't obviously always playing her best. You know, it was tough for her at times to put away Christian, but when she managed to win that game and held for 5-4, I kind of thought like, okay, that's she can win this now.
Will they go off court? I don't know. I see Iga just changing her racket or making some sort of racket adjustment. Okay, before we start panicking about that, what about any thoughts on this match today? I said to Damien in the preview that basically if this was like on a variety of courts around the world, I'd be fascinated and excited about it. Wimbledon, I think I would be almost less excited because I just think Muchova should win that. Probably some hard courts. US Open, I think, would probably be the most balanced one of all the courts on the planet. Would that be the one where New York, Flushing Meadow? Can you think of sort of another court where there would be 50-50?
Yeah, I mean they just played at the United Cup, and that's a faster hard court, and
Yeah.
Iga managed to win, albeit it was 2 hours. It was 6-3, 6-4. There were some complicated moments in there. But that was like kind of her most decisive win again in the rivalry. She's won 3, and I think the previous 2 were 3-setters in 2023. There was the Roland Garros final, of course, where she was down a break in the third, and then there was the match in Montreal, which she won 6-4 in the third. So
maybe North America in general, that sort of North American swing, Montreal, Cincinnati, New York might provide the most interesting. So what I'm suggesting, of course, is here, and I see the win predictor has something like 75-25. Both Damien and I went for an Iga win, and I guess you're going the same way.
yeah, I still have to give Iga the edge, although Muchova, the kind of game style that can present Iga some problems with the way that she kind of lures Iga to the net, and like the way she can use her just like her all-roundedness and her attack mode, and like the way she can she presents a different kind of a style that's more complete than a lot of the players that Iga plays. So I still imagine that there will be some kind of moments, some tight moments that Iga will have to overcome. It won't be at all like the first 2 rounds that she had, where it was basically smooth sailing. But yeah, I would go for an Iga win.
They are just pausing for now, but we've got plenty to talk about in the meantime. I don't know if you've seen the Andy Roddick interview with, or even heard with Rafa Nadal yet?
I actually watched most of it already.
Yeah, I've listened to it entire. I watched the first 20 minutes, and because of my day, meaning I couldn't tune into YouTube thereafter, I then listened to the remaining 45 minutes. Yeah, what did you make of it?
I thought it was really well done because they kind of hit all the topics in a pretty concise way. But
Yeah,
I enjoyed the most when he was talking about his rivalries with Djokovic and Federer.
me too.
That's the one that I wanted to hear the most because I wanted to see if there was any difference in how he's talking about those rivalries now versus when he was still active. And I think he was a bit more honest now
Of
than he
course.
was, which you would expect.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is, you and I both know he can't be too honest when let me just fix the screen. He can't be too honest when he's about to play them again time in the future, right?
Yeah. Mm. It's so much easier to be transparent after you finish playing. So
tell me, against Roger, it probably wasn't so revealing. I mean, I guess the fact that he said in 2017 he actually felt that period that Roger was playing arguably the best tennis of his career, which is obviously something to say, bearing in mind he'd won, I don't know how many Grand Slams before 2017. I'm going to guess 16, 17, something like that.
17.
17. Yeah. So was his 2017 Australian Open his 18th?
Yep.
Okay, got it. So bearing in mind he's won 17 Grand Slams, and yet obviously age very much would normally go the other direction. But as far as Rafa was concerned, he certainly found Roger a very different customer in the last couple of years of their rivalry compared to the previous periods. But maybe his comments on Novak were even more interesting, right?
Yeah, basically he said that against Roger he had like kind of a clear plan in mind and it was a chess match and you knew what the other guy was going to do and it was just about how well you feel on the day and how good your confidence is, but he kind of knew it. Federer kind of knew it, and then the adjustments came later at the end of his career. But versus Djokovic there was no clear strategy. He just said I have to play really really well with super high intensity and I can't, the same patterns that work against Roger don't work against Novak. So I thought that part was interesting, and also how he said that he felt his chances were much better on grass against Djokovic than on hard courts.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting too.
I mean, the evidence does back that up, bearing in mind he didn't win a set on a hard court from 2013 onwards. Of course, what was interesting as well was the fact that he was so, not regretful, but just, it was the grass that he said that may well have been his second best surface. I mean, it's obviously a lot shorter season. And when we look at the slam wins, he's got, 6 on hard, I guess, and 2 on grass. Now, of course, there's only one grass court tournament on, but you know what I mean? It's still very lopsided in terms of the hard court success he had. And yet he sort of said, look, and of course he makes the point of making 5 Wimbledon finals in a row when he was there, obviously missing 2009. But yeah, against Novak, there's one thing in that interview when I wanted to jump in. Now, sometimes I can jump in and I can make the interview worse, and sometimes I could make it better, and we'll never know the direction. But there's a point when I want to mention that 2018 Wimbledon semi-final, and it's towards the end of that conversation, and he moves on, and I'm like, oh no, you just got to get him. So I think it's basically when he said he felt he had a better chance. I'd have just gone, 2018 semi-final, tell me something.
Yeah. Would have been a good time to bring up that match, actually.
But you know what? You these things can go in all sorts of directions, and you might miss out on some other stuff. Of course, there was a lot of good stuff about that. There was also I think we got some more information about the last year or two with the injuries. I mean, for example, even right at the end, we still probably sort of put the finish of his career down to his hip. And yet, he couldn't walk for a month after the Davis Cup last year because of the foot. So it seems like there were 2 almost injuries that did finish his career in a way, because they then. You probably didn't hear this. It's right at the end of the pod where I think they find out that he couldn't walk for a month after the Davis Cup match against Botic, and that was because of his foot. And he even showed them, not on YouTube, but they talk about it afterwards. They say, look, he showed us his foot and it's just blown up like a balloon. And this is, 4 months since he last played a competitive match.
Wow, yeah. So I didn't get to that part yet. I'm like most of the way through. I'm at the part where he starts talking about his foundation and all the charity work. I kind of that's the part that I still have about 20 minutes left.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's interesting.
because there's about 5 minutes of sort of post-mortem stuff or post-reflection. Just so you know, those coming on and wanting to know why we aren't talking about Igor against Karolina, well, they are leaving the court.
Yeah, they left the court for it's a rain delay. Looks like so.
I do have plenty to pick your brains on, Vange, if you're happy to keep
Mhm.
going for an hour. And then if it gets to like an hour and they still haven't returned, then we can always put this on pause. And I've got plenty of other commentators that are be coming and going throughout the day. Anyway, there's a swing door with Damien, I know, joining us later, and Brenner and many others. But anyway, yeah. So just quickly, I just have one or two more things to say about that. Yeah, about the last 2 years. I mean, we've only got little bits of information. There was the bit when in 2023, so he goes back to, and it is a sort of a line in the sand moment for me. You know, you could look at Indian Wells, you could as a line in the sand moment for Rafa, in that, you know, he was healthy that first 3 months of the year and he's unbeaten. He gets, I think his rib injury flares up against Carlos in, you know, I mentioned it the other day as being an underrated match, and it's just because we talk about so many other matches, but I love that match, albeit maybe I'm a bit biased. And of course, he has a rib injury, flares up towards the end of it, and then it finally cracks in the match against Taylor under the duress of those two matches back to back. And that was the sort of stop-start part of his 2022, but he does come back for Madrid and Rome that year. Just trying to think, 2022. Yeah, he saved some match points in Madrid, didn't he, against someone? Maybe Goffin, was it?
Yeah, against Goffin. Then he loses to Alcaraz in the quarters.
Yeah,
and then
right.
And then in Rome, he wins one match, and then he's playing really well against Chapo, and then he hurts his foot. And then there was those doubts before RG, and then we know what happened with RG. He wins that.
Exactly. And then he has a good Wimbledon, you know, good to great. I don't want to get too carried away. He drops sets in the first week, as he sometimes can, but he's getting better with every match. And I think against Botic in the fourth round, you know, it was 4 sets, but he was playing, you know, good grass court tennis. And in the first 6 and so I put the real line in the sand against Taylor at Wimbledon. I actually sort of refer to this as the sort of last time we saw Rafa Nadal as a tennis player, because the first 6 games he breaks, and I think he gets to 4-1 or 5-2, 4-1, I think. And I remember him doing a smash. I was there for this match. Steve Flink was sat 2 or 3 rows in front of me, by the way. And I've said to Steve, I've had him on the show many times, I never spoke to him. And he said, "Oh, you should have. Why didn't you come down and have a chat?" Well, I said, "Well, you know, I'd never met you before, and it's a bit different now." But it's funny. I remember seeing the back of his head and him making a few notes during that match. And boy, did he have to make a lot of notes during that match, because what happens at 4-1 is that's when the ab injury, which he'd been carrying through the tournament, because we saw on his stomach these sort of, I don't know what to call it, like not plasters, that they were bigger and more significant, bandage or something like that. And yeah, I put a line in the sand on that match as being the last time. And he, in this interview with Roddick, he doesn't bring up that specific match, but he talks about the ab injury that he got there. And something that we'd heard spoken about, but we didn't know for sure, was that ab injury flared up again just days before the US Open.
Yeah, he mentioned that. And then, because I remember he lost to Chorich in Cincinnati, but then that ended up aging pretty well because Chorich won the title.
Yeah.
But then he didn't look right the first few rounds of the US Open. Like there was that match with Fognini where he didn't play well at all, but won.
Yeah.
And then,
Tiafoe.
Yeah,
lost.
the Tiafoe loss. He didn't look right. So that explains it.
So exactly. So there were some little bits when they talked about because what I'm kind of looking for is something new. And I do think we got a lot of new stuff. You know, the tactic against Djokovic in particular, the hitting the ball down the center of the court as an idea. And I think, I get that. That makes sense. Because you don't want to give Djokovic an angle, basically, unless you're going to finish the point.
Yeah. And using the slice.
Using the slice. And by the way, when you're listening to him talking about the slice at Wimbledon or on grass, but I'm thinking Wimbledon, I can see it. I can see him doing that slice down the line.
I can visualize it.
Yeah, me too. And as I heard him saying, because I think at this point I'm listening to it on the podcast.
I think it got better and better as his career went on, that slice.
Yeah, I think so.
Down the line.
There's a great YouTube clip, albeit on a hard court, of him just practicing slices for 20 minutes. And it's just, he's got two guys on the other side of the court, as he often will have, as a lot of the professionals do have, and it's just poetry for 20 minutes. It's just almost every single one is hit perfectly, and it's it's just fizzing across the top of the net. But that slice down the line, I remember seeing it a lot at Wimbledon, and I visualized it as he was mentioning it.
Yeah, and then he talked about sliding really well on both sides on clay, and how there's like different types of slides, and there's some that give you more control than others, and how he's like just a natural clay quarter, like he uses the leftiness. So yeah, we got some nuggets there. That
what he also said about the sliding, which is something he just sort of talked about, how you can produce a lot more power in your shots.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things that are kind of obvious to me. You can get back to position. You may be able to get to it in a more comfortable way, and you might be able to get more of a racket on the ball than if you were just running, But actually just also being able to get a bit more power on your shot, and maybe even more topspin as well. Oh, also another thing about Roger, which, as I say, this has been pretty well documented, because I think Roger's spoken about a lot. I know Ljubicic has as well, about that change. But one thing, of course, that the more aggressive approach that Roger had to his backhand, especially the returns, was it also meant actually a bit less topspin, so a little bit less bounce, and therefore I guess the ball would bounce lower for Rafa, which would be slightly less convenient for him.
Yeah, then he also said that tactically, I think Roger made a mistake earlier in his career, which was interesting that he would say it like that, Like
what was it?
He allowed me to hit more forehands against his backhand. So he kept giving me topspin backhands back, and then in 2017 he changes it, and then he's taking the ball earlier and on the rise and flattening it out.
So obviously the reason we're talking about this Andy Roddick interview with Rafa is because there's a rain delay right now in Indian Wells, and that interview is out there for you, free to listen to, either wherever you get your podcasts from, or of course on YouTube, which is where we're coming at you from right now. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the matches we've got that are due to come up today, but at the moment postponed. Oh, I mean, by the way, we can just have a quick minute on Indian Wells. Does it need a roof? Should it get a roof? What do you think?
I mean, generally it doesn't rain that much here. Like, I know it rained a little bit last year because of I think the semis Friday and Saturday was raining last year, which was kind of more of a one-off. It is a desert, so like it doesn't rain that much. Do they have the facility for it? Do they have the resources? Probably.
I mean, the stadium is so big. I'm just thinking logistically, and I'm not an architect, but it must be. It's not just a case of let's build a roof. I mean, in Hamburg, they're a little bit more creative, I think. I think they've got some sort of umbrella sort of thing going on. And I think one or two other tournaments may have approached it this way. I think maybe in Australia, in Sydney, perhaps, I've seen some sort of slightly more innovation to make it a little bit cheaper and a bit easier to do.
Yeah, maybe if they get permission from the city and there's enough people who support it, maybe it's possible that they put it, but then it's just like a plan goes in place and then it doesn't get implemented until probably 3 or 4 years. Like I know that happened in Rome in 2023. There was it basically rained out the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember 23 well.
And then they said that in 2026 they would have a roof. Was it 2026 or 2025? I think 2026.
At some point, anyway. Yeah. But the thing is, for me, a lot of people just don't think about that side of things, Vanch. And for me, I think there's some tournaments, Wimbledon, basically, or a lot of Northern European tournaments that are happening during our summer. Makes sense. There may be some other tournaments around the world that are more prevalent to have rain than others.
So next year. Okay.
Yeah, but Indian. Oh, okay. But Indian. So are they going to do it for Rome? Is it? I mean, all that.
I think next year. Yeah.
Okay. So, but as for Indian Wells, and same for Rome, it doesn't rain that often, and that was the worst year 23. But they still got things done, and by the semis and certainly by the final, they were sort of back on track. I think the way they managed it in 23 in terms of the women, there was something very crazy with the scheduling for the semis and the final, but that was just bad organization.
Yeah, I think they sandwiched the final in between the two semis, and then it was kind of like they didn't do the trophy ceremony properly, or there was it was was just some scheduling decisions were weird. So, but I remember that.
But anyway, but then when it comes to Indian Wells, I mean, yeah, I don't think it does, Terry. I mean, it may have rained that year. There may have been another year it did, but I don't think it generally does rain that much. And as for Indian Wells, it's barely. But even that year, I think last year when it rained a bit, it barely disrupted things. There wasn't like a huge backlog of matches.
In general, they have their scheduling well set up, so it's not like they have too many. They don't have like less matches per day or too many. Like they have it structured pretty nicely. Like now for the next 3 days in a row, we'll have 8 matches each, and then the next 3 days we'll have 2 each. So there's no kind of day that's
right.
Until the last 3 days.
See, I'm old enough to remember Manic Monday at Wimbledon. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and it was just basically, I think, all the 4th round matches.
Yeah,
maybe
all of them. Yeah.
I mean, it was fun, but in terms of the viewing experience and everything else, it was time to go. I mean, don't forget, of course, they didn't used to play on the middle Sunday until there was an exception, I'm guessing here, but around about the early 90s. It was like the first middle Sunday ever, just because they'd got such a huge backlog with the weather. I think they then did it 2 or 3 more times over the next 10 years, and then they just did away with that. And of course, now we've got 15-day slams everywhere except Wimbledon. Is that right?
Except Wimbledon, yeah. Maybe Wimbledon will.
I think they will.
Actually, yeah.
I think they will. I think it makes sense.
They're usually the slowest, but I think eventually they'll do it. Yeah, pretty quickly.
I think the only thing is 15 is totally fine and makes perfect sense. Can we go to 16 though? I don't know if we can.
I mean, honestly, that would be cool. Yeah, 3 weekends. And then
you get 3 weeks. It's all about the weekends, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get 3 rounds in for the first 2 matches. First 2 rounds.
Can we? Because you know why, right? For me, I know the biggest problem is obviously, invading on the previous week's tournaments.
Yeah. So if they find a way to get the previous week, like reduce the draw size for those tournaments, like the starting 1 day earlier would be tough on those players, but. Maybe don't put any 250s that week, but that's hard.
I mean, in a way, we're going bigger at the moment with the week before, with Hamburg going in that week. I think as a 500, we've got Strasbourg, which is a 500 on the women's side, and we're sort of, we're getting more 500s than 250s, and the 250s on the women's side, as Damien and I were talking about yesterday, is almost a non-event at times, and. Yeah. Anyway, that is what it is. Shall we have a quick look at some of the matches that are coming up over the next 24 hours?
Sure.
All right. Let's get your very quick take on some of the matches from today, where Damien and I have already pretty much gone through them and given our predictions. Both Damien and I have Tsitsipas to beat Rune. Kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, Tsitsipas right now just looks very liberated, and he's playing with that confidence after the new racket switch and also winning in Dubai, and he just looks like he's able to assert himself more creatively, and the backhand is holding up really nicely, and just in general he's got the fire back and everything. So I would expect him to beat Rune, but at the same time Rune has been tricky for him, like the 3-0 head to head, and then also. Rune played a very good third set against Umber. He played a pretty good third set against Umber, and he did well here last year too. So it definitely won't be an easy match for sure.
Greek School Watanuki is a match that should be getting underway right now, but as you can see on the screen, there's a rain delay to those matches. What are your thoughts on this encounter? Because you were watching, of course, you were at Indian Wells 2 days ago.
I was, and that was that was the most exciting moment, I think, for me. Watanuki, watching him live. That experience is just crazy because he has this really elaborate service motion, that's very unconventional, but somehow it works. And then he takes full cuts at first serve returns that are coming at his body, like 125, 130 miles. He's honestly super entertaining. Like the way he just, and he plays with a lot of joy, and he pulls off these shots that seem very high risk. And he manages to, when it works amazing. But then he probably has some days where he's not playing at that level. But against Tiafoe, it was just like the perfect opponent, because Wayne Ferreira, who used to coach Tiafoe from 2020 to 2023, is also Watanuki's coach right now. And they also have the match that he played in Miami where he almost beat him. It was like a tight 3-setter. So now he finally gets over the hump and beats a top 20 player, and
Of course, I'm aware of your Indian Wells presence anyway, and I know you're going to be on the ground in Miami too. But of course, I saw lots of your tweets, and including some of the clips that you posted there from Rafa and many other things. And of course, you've been on Ground Pass recently and plenty of other things. But I also loved some of your stuff from Indian Wells over the course of the weekend. Now, I'm getting this from Vanch's kind of new Twitter account that you've been forced into. So do give that a follow at Vanch v Tennis. You don't need to elaborate too much, but you can tell me and our audience a little bit about where are we close? Are we any movement on getting your old account back?
Unfortunately, Twitter support is just very broken right now, and they're just not responding. And so all I can really basically do is submit appeals, provide all the proof, provide screenshots that it was hacked, and just, do everything I can and as quickly as I can. And basically, I've just been trying to reach out to people that I think might work in Twitter or used to work, because right now I just don't think they have the personnel to handle it. And I think it might just be strictly automation and AI right now. So that's a really big problem right now that Twitter has after, like 80% of their workforce was laid off.
Yeah.
So that makes it really challenging. I think it used to be easier to get this kind of a thing resolved, especially like hacking. They take more seriously than most cases. So right now, for the moment, I'm not that optimistic, but that's why I'm just trying to grow this one as much as I can, and hopefully, people remember me and they know this is actually me.
Yeah, right. So do give him a follow on there at Vanch v Tennis. I've had issues like this with Facebook, and it never got resolved because you're just dealing with bots. I've had issues with YouTube. Now, YouTube has its flaws for sure, but one of the good things is with YouTube compared to Twitter and Facebook is you can get to, at the moment anyway, who knows, they may change in the future. You can get to a human reasonably quickly. You'll have your first issue, which will all be done by bots. There may be a second period of communication, which is done with bots. But if you keep going, it doesn't take long to get to a human being. Even there are human beings on social media where I have even had interactions with, YouTube accounts, official YouTube account with, I think it's something like YouTube, I don't know what it's called, YouTube Moderate or YouTube Fix or something. And it is an official Google account with several million followers, and you can communicate with him. So there you go. One tick for YouTube, but one cross definitely for Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And Facebook is the same. Just couldn't get to a human being. And then once 6 months passed, you get an email which basically said, why didn't you, this is all automated as well, why didn't you issue an appeal within the 6 month period or whatever? And it's like, yeah, I did that. I did it like 10 times. And you're probably doing it. You've probably done it 10 times in the last 2 weeks. And what I will say is to our audience, from my perspective, is I have seen a few things on Twitter in the last few weeks. I've been getting a few DMs, or at least I've had two on 2 or 3 occasions where I've had DMs from someone saying something like, please contact me urgently. I remember the word urgent being there. And I responded in a Twitter message, certainly to one of the two, because it was someone that I knew a little bit. Yeah. But it was also like, add this account and follow it because you need to fix this particular problem that they had created by mistake. It's all seemed a bit far-fetched. And I just managed to contact both of the 2 people that had done it, saying, just so you know, I think your account has been hacked, and it was on both occasions.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, give Vanch a follow and let's build that account up ASAP. I don't have, so some of the biggest people on social media, your Ben Rothenbergs and your Jose Morgados, etc. I only have them as Twitter followers. Well, Ben Rothenberg I don't think does follow me, but I have got his email. And Jose is someone who I will probably see in about a month from now. And I saw him in Rio just before this flared up, but I don't have any direct contact with him. And then, the rest of it is just, doing what we always do, which is retweeting your stuff whenever we see it, but also giving you a follow where we can. Anything else you want to add, or should we move on?
No, that's good. I think luckily for me, it's been about 8 days, and the response to this has been mostly positive from the community. Like generally, I've been getting messages. I've been getting people following me immediately because they recognize it. So That's good.
The problem is that when you said something just now, which is like some people might even think this is a fake account. Do you know what I mean? Because when you said something like it really is me, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that some people might think that. I send DMs on Twitter, basically encouraging people to subscribe to the channel. But with so much spam and so much hacking out there, I was looking at some of those messages recently thinking, they probably think this is some sort of spam or hack or something. But anyway, so yeah, it really is Vanch, and do give him a follow if you can. Okay. Runa Tsitsipas, Tick, Watanuki Greek Sport. Actually, we just started talking about this match, and both Damien and I, maybe unsurprisingly, did go Greek Sport, but Damien said that Watanuki is one of these crazy guys that could almost beat anyone on tour. He certainly could beat Greek Sport.
Yeah, no, Greek Sport right now has been playing really confidently with the +1, and he's basically just gonna, you know what he's gonna bring pretty much, match in and match out. Whereas Watanuki is a bit more of an unknown, and obviously, he can't just surprise him. And it honestly is a bit random. That it's a bit random the way he can play for certain games and points, and then and it can just look absolutely spectacular. And then there's other times where it's just like, okay, he's come down to earth now. And finally it's like, okay, 2 games here where, yeah, it was just too high risk. But I think I would give Greek Sport only a very slight edge.
Okay, only slight.
Yeah.
Are you not kind of impressed with Greek Sport's run in Indian Wells? And maybe
he's gotten himself into so many battles against top 10 players the last 2 years. Like, he just keeps running into Sinner, Alcaraz, Zverev, and at some point I think he was due for a win of this kind. So, and Zverev kind of played very passively, and he invited Greek Sport to make it, and he almost blew it, but then he at the very, very end he saved it. So that was impressive, because he also did that to Medvedev in Dubai. So now he's and then he managed to back it up against Pericard. So it makes sense.
What is wrong with Zverev at the moment post Australia?
Probably a combination of knowing that he's closer to getting the #1 ranking, plus the loss itself at the Australian Open, plus the fact that he's just he played that golden swing and he basically didn't enjoy it at all. And it just looks like he's like just not feeling the ball as well as he was in Australia, not feeling like he's damaging enough or imposing enough. And right now I think it's a bit of a lull that might last for a bit, but then he'll find it again. But right now that position and his approach to it is just kind of off.
Is there a way we could move that South American swing to a little bit later and bring the Sunshine Double forward a bit, just to sort of switch them, so that way we have a sort of normal clay court swing and a normal sort of hard court swing and blah blah blah?
I wonder. I mean, I could create like a calendar. I've been wanting to do this at some point. Like,
me too. Me too. I'm really cool.
Just create a calendar that I think would work based on the weather and the location. And I almost wonder if you could even put Miami before Indian Wells.
Okay. Why would you do that?
Because basically you would basically start, like, I would probably even start in Asia, to be honest. I would start in Asia, then go to Australia. Then I would move the golden swing just before the clay court season. But I'd put like Indian Wells, like Acapulco, like honestly I might even do like Indian Wells, then Acapulco, then the clay court, then the South American swing, and then the European clay court season. Like, I'd totally mix it up, change it up.
I'd love to, and I think we're going to do it. We've got to do a show on this at some point this year, maybe in the next few weeks, maybe in the next whatever. But we've got to get our thoughts, down on a pen and paper, and just try and get a calendar. And I would like it
would probably also involve getting rid of one of the Masters 1000s. Like,
probably
I think one of the 9 probably has to go at this point.
Probably it does. I've got various ideas that I've thought of. I've thought of putting Cincinnati and Canada on a sort of, well, obviously there's 2 locations in Canada. Maybe put them on a 3-year cycle. Putting those on a 3-year cycle. The other one would involve dropping either Cincinnati or Miami. You could potentially drop 1,000 from Asia, but they don't have a single, 1,000 on the whole continent. And if you throw in Australia as a continent too, that's 2 continents and South America doesn't have so there's 3, and Africa doesn't have anything really. So, you don't want to have all the thousands in Europe and so you could drop Paris Bercy maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but it's
dropping 1,000 somewhere and
because
making
if you're gonna do the 2 weeks thing for like 7 of them, that takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, I wouldn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Maybe I would leave it for one, maybe Indian Wells, just to sort of make it that.
I like the Indian. I used to like it before, where the Sunshine Double was the only one with the Masters, and then everything else was 1 week. I also don't like it when it was like, the Beijing WTA only being 2 weeks and then Shanghai only being 2 weeks. To me, that's just overkill.
Yeah, and also I would try and get rid of buys somehow. So I'd either
or I would try to find a format where it's like 64 players, 0 buys, 10 days. Then you could get the best of both worlds because you get 2 weekends for these 1,000s. And then, yeah, it would hurt some of the players though, because right now you have like 96 player draws, so more players are able to get in, so they're given an opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
But
so then you either go 64 or 128. I mean,
yeah, or maybe expand the qualifying field. Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but
yeah, we'll have to do this someday. And these are lots of my spitball. I know a lot of people talk about adding 1,000 on grass, but I'm fine with it as it is. It doesn't make Queens. I don't think making Queens a 1,000 or Haller or whatever would change that much. It's still important. Queens is a fantastic. Well, I actually know Haller in a way better, having worked there last year. But both are. I don't think it makes much difference, because if you made one of them 1,000, by the way, more people would go to one than the other. Yeah. So you'd only sort of hurt one and reward another, but leaving them both as 500s, it's fine. The grass court season is just so short that adding 1,000 in there I don't want to devalue. I find that we've over the last few years, or maybe even always have done, I think we've devalued the 1,000s by having 19 across the 2 tours. I think now you look at Sabalenka post Australia. Look at Alcaraz in his late teens going, I'm not going to play Rome because I think it'll give me a better chance at.
I think the February thing is too much for the women. Because they also have all the 500 requirements, so they pretty much have to pay either Abu Dhabi or most of them anyway, unless you get fined. But which is a choice. But then even the 2 1,000s back to back, they're too close together, and it's.
I'm sure some people just take this fine as well, and who can afford to take the fine? The top players. So that's not a good thing either. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to, I can see some sunshine as well, so fingers crossed they will be playing again soon. Anyway, back to today and some of the matches. I see Grigspor and Watanuki, according to the webpage, are warming up. What I'm going to do then, just very quickly, because it could be our only chance, I'm going to get you to give me your thoughts on maybe one or both of these 2 matches, which are going to be tomorrow. Let's start with Dimitrov-Alcaraz. Dimitrov beat Alcaraz in Miami. Were you there for that match last year?
I was, yeah. It was one of the best matches I've ever seen Dimitrov play from start to finish, and his backhand was just the star of the show that day, and he was just hitting it sublime. But it's, faster conditions, and Alcaraz was just coming off of the win in Indian Wells, and he was caught off guard a little bit and didn't expect that kind of performance. And he also beat him in Shanghai, but I think in these conditions, plus Dimitrov playing 3 hours yesterday against Monfils, leaving everything out there, and physicality has been a question mark for Dimitrov all year. He just hasn't managed to stay healthy. And so I would still back Alcaraz, probably straight sets.
Actually, Dimitrov has won the last 2. He also won in
Shanghai and Miami.
Yeah, right. In Miami was 6-2, 6-4. Wow, it was much more comfortable than I realized. Yeah, and the previous 3 to that, Alcaraz winning at Queens en route to the title, Madrid, which I guess was also en route to the title in 23. Yes, it was. He only beat Struff in the final. And then indoors in Paris, which, funny enough, might be the condition where I would favor Dimitrov the most. And yet there we are with Alcaraz. Funny enough, in 2022, I remember Alcaraz getting to a semi, I'm going to say in Basel against Holger Rune. Do you remember that one when he retired just after the tiebreak?
Well, semi was against Felix in Basel, and
Oh,
then quarters in Paris. But he was playing very well in Paris until the quarters, until he had the injury. So
yeah, right.
And actually, Paris used to be slower then. Like Paris last year was really quick.
Okay.
But they sped it up.
Yeah, so interesting there. But anyway, yeah. So you don't think that Dimitrov has much of a chance tomorrow?
Not much. I think he can trouble him. I think he can, I kind of feel actually not that optimistic about Dimitrov. Kind of like the Shapovalov match. I feel like it could be similar to that.
Okay. What about Cerundolo in his match against de Minaur? I guess de Minaur's the slight favourite there, or maybe even big favourite?
Yeah, I think I backed de Minaur, but I still back de Minaur because like the way he's been playing on slower courts later on in his career gives me a lot. Like he's improved so much in that area because he can just, he is hitting the ball bigger. He is able to hit through these conditions a bit better, like winning Acapulco twice, getting to the Roland Garros quarters. He's improved his ability there. But Cerundolo is one of these, like Cerundolo had a really good chance to go up 2-0 on Alex at the Australian Open and didn't take it. And his forehand is still much bigger than Alex's, so he does have some advantages in terms of the baseline rallies, I find. But I also feel like there's a bit of an expiration date because he's not the most clutch when it comes to closing it out. So I would probably back Alex, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went 3 sets.
Okay. The ladies are coming back on court. I think I'll back de Minaur as well. Yeah, probably in 3 I would go for. The ladies are back on court, so we'll talk about that shortly. But let's see if we can get these 2 quarters in as well, or these 2 fourth round matches, in as well, that will be taking place tomorrow. Nakashima. Have you heard of this guy called Nakashima, Vanch? I don't know if you're familiar with him. Top 40 player.
I may have mentioned him once or twice on this show.
So he's up against Ben Shelton in an All-American affair. Draper against Fritz as well. Let's begin with Nakashima against Shelton. Have they played before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they played twice or 3 times actually. The first they played in Australia, and that was like 7-6, 7-5, 7-5. It was a very good match, but kind of at the end of sets, it felt like Shelton just had another extra gear, and it was the same thing when they played last year in DC. A couple of tie breaks there. So far he's had more. He's won tie breaks, a lot of tie breaks against Brandon, and that's kind of been the difference. And I expect that because these 2 are above average servers and below average returners, so it doesn't surprise me when you see 3 tie breaks. Yeah, two times last year also on the clay in Houston. But so based on that, you would have to favor Shelton slightly. But I also think these conditions are good for Brandon. Like it gives him a little bit of extra time to unload on the forehand. It takes the spin pretty well. He's got a very good kick serve himself. And he's feeling really good right now. His form has been really good the last 3 tournaments. Delray Beach quarters, Acapulco semis, where he was just a few points away from beating Mahach. And then now in the quarters, he was very convincing against Arnaldi yesterday. So I expect.
By the way, I mean, I saw his match yesterday against
Hachanov,
and I tell you what, it was. I mean, it's always fun with Shelton. But it was great. I don't know how to. It was a straight sets win. Of course, he's down a break in the second set at 5-3, and the excitement that he showed at breaking there. It was like he'd won the tournament almost. The scream and everything. I know some people find that off-putting, but I think it's genuine. I think it's real. I think he just wants to. I think he wants to kick himself up the behind, if you like, and give him it meant a lot. But I also think it meant a lot because he thought, I'm going to win this match now. Now I've got that break back at 5-4. It felt like the most important game of the match. Who knows which way it goes if it goes 3. But the fact he got the break back there, I almost felt like he was going to get it done even before the tiebreak as well. And that's exactly how it turned out. He won 3 or 4. He won 4 games in a row, didn't he, to win it 7-5 in the third. Sorry, in that second set. And yeah, Hachanov is in that sort of position right now where he had an injury hit year last year, which was a pity for him, for someone who was so consistent in the 2 years prior to that. And it still felt a bit like, to me, there was a couple of balls where he didn't seem to be moving as well as I would expect. and it still feels a bit like Khachanov is feeling his way back onto the tour.
Yeah, he had a good finish to the end of last year. Like in the indoor swing, he I think made the final in Vienna, and he like played well in Paris-Bercy. He made the semis. He won a title the week before, so he had 3 good tournaments in a row. But then this year, I kind of feel like he's had trouble punching above that level. Like didn't quite sustain it during the off season. Like he's had some tough matches. Like I remember he lost to Medvedev in Doha, where he probably should have won. He had a lot of chances. Then he loses to Tsitsipas. That was another close match. He finally beat Dan Evans, which was like he got a big monkey off his back there. But yeah, he's just kind of one of these players that's like a litmus test. I don't feel like he punches above that very often. So that's
and
that means you're kind of playing at a
Like, I think that's why I'm big on that result for Shelton yesterday.
Yeah, so for Ben, the serving has been interesting because for him it's always a challenge between the speed gun and then using the spots and the variety because he can easily hit 150.
Yeah,
and that'll work against a lot of players, but the really elite returners will be able to get him back on his heels.
I don't think Khachanov is an elite returner, but I think he dealt with it quite well yesterday. Some of those body serves, for example.
He did. He dealt with the pacier serves better than he did the slower ones. And when Shelton was actually going for the sliders out wide, or when he was actually hitting his spots, that's where Khachanov had issues. So that's what will be interesting in the next few rounds if he can find that balance.
I just think that serve return dynamic, I would favor Ben. I know
right now he's a really good server, but I wouldn't put him up there with like Pechi Pericard or even or Zverev or Berrettini or some of the others. Like I think he's a top 10 server, but he's not like a top 3, top 4 server.
But he could and probably should be. And
he could be. Like I feel like in the next couple of years he could be the second best server, and maybe after Hurkacz.
Okay, yeah. So this match, as much as you have good feelings for Brandon, and I probably am a bit biased towards Ben. I've hardly ever dealt with him, but I just love watching him play. I do see Ben winning this one probably in straights.
I do too, but I'm going to go 3. I think Brandon can take a set.
All right, cool. Sounds nice. Final one we can talk about is Jack Draper against Taylor Fritz. Now, I think I saw bits or all of their matches yesterday. Fritz was very up and down in that first set, especially. And Fritz talked about this in his post-match interview, basically, of where he just needed to get more balls back in play. That service game that he got broken in to lose the set.
2 double faults in back-to-back.
2 double faults. There was a couple of shot choices that I thought he made. It was just a weird, very off game from a guy who's, top 5 player in the world.
Yeah, the start of the year has been interesting because obviously Australian Open didn't go the way he wanted, and then he played through February, but he had abdominal issues. So then this tournament all of a sudden becomes important for him. Like there's some pressure on him to maybe make the semis, live up to his ranking after the great year that he had last year. So I don't know, maybe he's feeling that because the first set was just very odd. Like he was missing some routine shots. He went down 3-love, didn't play well at all. And then the last game in the final set. And then, he did pick it up a little bit, but just enough. I feel like Tabilo's level dropped off a lot. And he took advantage, and he's going to have to play a lot better against Jack because Jack is going to take some beating. He's playing very well this tournament.
He's played very well the last 6 months, really, no? I mean, he had a good spell towards the end of last year, and I think he's kicked on. Oh, probably Australia, he wasn't quite ready.
All those tough matches that he fought through without his best level.
Yeah.
I know he had to retire eventually, but overall, that was a pretty good tournament for him, so...
This one's a really difficult one to call. I've even changed my mind in the 2 minutes of us talking about it. And in fact, I've changed my mind from Jack to Taylor, which might be a bit of a surprise because we've probably said more good things about Jack. But that record in Indian Wells is, winning the title in 22. I think did he miss one of the 2 last 2 years? Because
last year he had 4 match points against Runa and he ended up losing in 3.
Right. So probably should maybe win that one. And his record in the desert is good enough to just make me go his way. And 3 sets. I'm still not sure about Jack. I know he got to the semis in a best of 5 scenario in New York last year, but I'm just gonna go Taylor with 3 sets.
Yeah, I went Taylor. I was thinking Taylor before I watched them play yesterday, and I still am gonna go. I'm gonna stick with it because still feel like not enough happened in the Tabilo match for me to change my mind. So I'll go with Taylor in 3.
All right. Muchova
Should be
Swiatek
back.
is underway. The weather is looking fine, as is Iga Swiatek in the first 2 points. That return of serve doing the damage there on that love 15 to love 30 point. And yeah, the last thing Muchova wants is just getting broken in the first game because it just, I don't know, against Iga. You know, if you get to 3 or 4, I remember, in the final last year, did Maria Sakkari hang with Iga for the first sort of 8 games last year,
Yep.
something like that?
4-all, 2-6-4, 6-0.
Yeah, exactly. But at least it was interesting for 25 minutes. There's a lot of Iga matches which are done in 15, you know?
Right.
So we'll see. But as I said to Damien, I just think that here, maybe even more than Roland Garros, as Iga a little bit too carried away with that return, makes it 15-30. Maybe here, even more than Roland Garros, which is Swiatek's very much her backyard.
Yeah,
I think here
she's gone off to fast starts against Muchova in most of their matches now. Actually,
okay.
Now that I think about it, in Roland Garros, it was 6-2, 3-0. In Montreal, it was, I think, a set and a break, or definitely the first. Yeah, like she won 6-1 the first set, and then in United Cup, the second set was way more complicated than the first. So, wonder if it just takes Muchova a while to like find the confidence to
How
go
many
after
titles has Muchova won in her career? 1?
Just 1, and that's the biggest thing that people talk about with her when it comes to her resume, because she hasn't won a title since 2019. So
yeah, and when we've been into some of these finals of late, like against Goff towards the end of last year, and who did she play? She played in a final this year, right? Against someone, Towson maybe. Who did she
no,
lose?
that was a semi.
A semi, okay. She lost a semi to Towson, yeah.
Yeah.
And as it was going deeper and deeper in the tournament, I was just like willing her on, but not really believing it. Maybe she feels the same.
Yeah, I thought there was that tournament in Linz the week after the Australian Open, and I kind of was going big on her then. I was like, she can win the title here.
So what happened?
But then she got hurt. Ended up getting hurt again, and then lost in the semis to Yastremska.
Iga should have done better there. 30-40. That net cord actually sort of helped her a bit.
Yeah. Is it a second serve now? 30-40.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about Vim per set in a minute because we'll see if Iga gets the break here or not.
Yeah, that backhand on the line is going to be big because she's going to have to take it earlier in rallies to avoid getting punished. Iga's kick serve is pretty deadly in these conditions.
Okay.
Because the ball bounces up so high.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember who was doing some kick serves yesterday, or maybe it was a couple of players doing it, and I thought, oh, that's lovely. I mean, Carlos as well has got that in his weaponry as well. But a nice point there for Muchova, but
yeah, but she's not making any first serves in this game, so that's been a problem.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, right now she's getting attacked on the back foot by these second serve returns. Just like good depth from Iga, forcing Muchova back.
Do you fear a blowout? I know it's only the first game, but
maybe the first set, but I think it'll get interesting at some point.
Funny enough, the Alcaraz Shapovalov match went in the opposite direction. I thought Alcaraz might find Shapo a difficult prospect for the first half of the match, but in the end, it was the opposite. Actually, Shapo grew into the match, but it was
that
a bit too
volley from Iga, backhand volley, just clipped the back of the line.
Yeah,
but it's,
and as I say, I mean,
but this time Muchova was ready. But I felt like their United Cup matches, Iga was just much more prepared for a lot of those short slices and drop shots. She wasn't surprised at any of them. She was quick to anticipate them. She was getting to them pretty quickly. And even though she didn't look quite so comfortable at the net, she would close in really quickly, and it would Muchova wasn't able to hit those passing shots.
It was a fantastic. It was a very good volley, but it is one that she should make. I guess the argument is it might not necessarily be an outright winner when she does make it, but it was. Yeah. So Vim for set, we just saw her at the net there. I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily a part of her game that he's particularly, gonna be working on. Maybe he is, particularly as we get towards the grass. But certainly just adding a bit more to her forte, right, is kind of why he's been brought on board. And you mentioned her serve. I know there were some changes she made ahead of Australia. I'm not sure we're quite seeing the results necessarily on the court yet, but perhaps we're seeing a slightly more rounded Iga. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, she definitely has played better against the likes of like Rybakina, Bolter, like those kind of big flat hitters. She's minus Ostapenko, but she's basically relying on her defense a lot more. So that was good in both the Rybakina matches. We saw some of that, and then in Australia, she looked a lot more comfortable and confident in the faster conditions. The serve, I haven't seen too much of a change. I think that's just gonna keep. They're just going to keep that the same for the most part. I think the other stuff, I don't think. I think the serve for at least this part of the season shouldn't be like that much of a thing holding her back, because in slower conditions, Indian Wells and clay court season, I don't think it'll be too much of a.
How was the wind when you were there over the weekend?
Not so bad actually. It was bad for a little bit, like a couple of hours in the morning. Like around between like 11 and 3 is when it was the most windy.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, yeah.
So I thought I saw the ball taking some strange moves in the Jack Draper match yesterday against
against Brooksby. Yeah.
But then they showed a graphic just saying like, I don't know if it was maybe 5 or 7 miles an hour, which doesn't seem like that strong a wind to me. But maybe it had changed. Maybe when I was watching it, and then between then and the graphic appearing, maybe it had changed. But because I saw the ball moving around, and sometimes it might be 1 point. And obviously, I'm aware of the fact that there might be different bounces and different ways that the players are hitting the ball. But maybe in the space of 5 minutes, it can change quite a lot.
Yeah, or sometimes it's really windy on one side, and then on the other side, you're against the wind, and so it's a bit easier to play.
Iga here with 2 game points, looking to settle in with a 2-love lead. Yeah, you would think that Muchova with her game style could, trouble Iga. I mean, she's got 1 win against her, but that was in 2019. Then there's been 3 wins for Swiatek in a row, including that United Cup match, but the most famous of which, of course, was that French Open final. I'd like to see him play. Obviously, on grass would be great news for Muchova. But even Roland Garros, I would just maybe have a bit more optimism about Karolina's chances than here at Indian Wells.
Yeah, and Roland Garros, Iga was kind of dominating for like the first half, 6-2, 3-0. And then after that, after that we saw Muchova really step up, come to the net a lot more, hit that forehand down the line. And she just got a lot more confident. And I think Iga, that was a very tense third set, Down 4-3, I believe, and a break.
By the way, that forehand for Muchova to lose that last game was pretty ugly.
Yeah. By the way, she was struggling physically a little bit in her match against Siniakova. She was winning, but she was getting treated on the change of ends.
Okay. I mean, it is always a sort of a background thing with Karolina.
But so far, I haven't seen any signs of it.
Who is more likely to win a slam, Vanch? Muchova or Jabeur?
At this point, probably Muchova.
Yeah. I mean, at least you got sort of 4 shots with Muchova. Is on maybe just 1 these days.
Yeah, I mean, she can make deep runs at the French. She can.
Yeah.
She can play
as well elsewhere, especially in New York.
Yeah, she can. But I just don't think the level stability is there like it was 2022 to 2023. Like she had a good start to the year. She was pretty good
Yeah.
until Dubai, and then and then she got hurt at Dubai, and then Indian Wells this year did not go well for her. But yeah, maybe Charleston to Wimbledon we'll see some good results, and then maybe
yeah.
Wimbledon is still like the most open one anyway, so.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess if it was tomorrow, I would make Sabalenka favourite, Rybakina second favourite, and then it's. I see Pegula has signed up for the Queen's grass court event. That's not. Is it the same week as Berlin, or is it a different week? Do you know? Let me have a look. Berlin WTA.
I think Queens is a 500 now.
It's WTA 500. Yeah. Just looking to see when.
I think it should be.
Oh no, Berlin's a week later. I think Berlin's a week later. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first week then.
Could be. So
oh wow. Okay.
Yes, the 9th of June. I see Pegula
right.
signed.
It's right after the French.
By the way, 2 break points have come and gone for Iga. I want to get to Pegula actually in a second because I've got a couple of things that I want to ask you about. But we've got another break point there. It was a decent serve from Muchova to save the first of those break points.
That's quite something. We have 3 500s, 3 500 weeks in a row on grass for the women.
Okay, yeah. What's the third one then? Bad Homburg.
Yeah, Bad Homburg.
Yeah, it comes a week after Berlin, I think.
Okay. And I guess they downgraded Eastbourne. They make that a 250.
Ah, okay. And Birmingham is gone, and I know Birmingham was a 250 before, but Birmingham's gone entirely.
Yeah.
Or Birmingham might be like a 125 maybe, or.
Yeah, it's a 125 in the second week of Roland Garros.
Oh, okay.
Gonna see what's going on also in the Watanuki match.
Yeah, do so. But while we do so, I just want to tell everyone that Iga Swiatek has broken for a second time, and we are looking at 3-love. It was a good. No. So I'm just going to talk about the previous moment. Yeah, so Iga's really in control here. Yeah, have a look at Watanuki and Griekspoor. What's the score, by the way?
So far, it's on serve. Watanuki has a game point for 2-all.
Oh, Muchova Yeah, I don't think Iga's having to play her A game yet. I think Muchova has given her a couple of gifts, which is the last thing you need to do on this court. So whether Muchova is feeling the effects of some injury travails that you highlighted or some health issues that she seemed to show a little bit against Siniakova, but I think there's probably a lack of belief as well. Maybe there's a combination of that and the fact that she's playing Iga Swiatek. And as a result, Iga's raced into a 3-love lead. I say raced into, although they've not been epic games. It does feel like there's been a few rallies there, so it's not been like over and done with in what was a couple of minutes. But anyway, so yeah, Watanuki and Griekspoor on serve, right?
Yep, 2-all.
Okay, you can keep an eye on that while I also pose some thoughts and questions about Pegula. Pegula winning Austin, which had escaped my attention when I was talking to Damien, because I think I said to Damien, I said, I think Pegula's not won a tournament since Berlin last year. And he went, oh, actually, she won Austin last week. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But I don't think her form has been great this year, particularly as I would, this is a decent part of the season for her pre-clay. And then as I was just daydreaming earlier about seeing her sign up for Queens, basically in that week after Roland Garros, and thinking about her age and just thinking about where that slam win might come for her, I was thinking maybe a light clay season, and she's probably thinking, I'm not going to go deep in Paris. I mean, she might, and if she gets to the semis, she'll probably pull out of that tournament. But, either have a light clay season. I mean, I would be interested, even if she not abandoned it, but I don't know. I mean, would it be the wildest thing to do in the world if she just went, you know what, I'm just going to focus on Wimbledon and just put all my eggs in that basket?
I think she still has. I think she can win Wimbledon. I think Wimbledon and US Open are good bets for her. Like, the clay season. She had to do that last year because she had the injury, but
yeah.
But
But
I
she
still
did
think
say
she'd
that
rather
she
be a
might
match
have.
her because there's no guarantee she'll win a grass warm up. And she came into Wimbledon, last year, I thought, with a good chance, and then she loses
Yeah,
to Jinyu Wang in the
yeah,
second round.
yeah.
So I don't know. She still has a lot of points to gain this year, I feel like, aside
Yeah.
from the
Madrid
you know
might be a tournament where she might have a run. I think she's made the
yeah, she
quarters.
made the final. She made the final there in 2022.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
She likes the conditions, I think. And I mean she's actually done well in all the clay tournaments. She's made like Charleston is a good one for her. I think Rome is like, quarters, Roland Garros
Yeah.
quarters. So
She's probably still a bit too young to start doing a sort of
yeah,
a
I think
fair or something. By the way, Mukova's defense today is also a bit off, I think. I just think that she seems a bit of a maybe since you made that comment, I've started looking out for it more, but she does seem a yard short.
she doesn't quite have the patience right now in the rallies to hang with Iga. It feels like she's playing the trigger very early.
Yeah, the Watanuki serve is certainly something. That's a lovely return from Karolina. Yeah, the Watanuki serve is something else, right?
Yeah, it's completely different than any other motion I've ever seen. Obviously, Roddick used to have that little hitch. Some players
Yeah.
have that. It's just he gets into the trophy position, but he does a lot of things before that. Yeah.
I was thinking today when I haven't checked, but just trying to think off the top of my head, when did Roddick retire? I'm going to say 2012, but maybe that's a couple.
2012 US Open.
Oh, it was 2012, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So he makes the final Wimbledon in 2008, and 2009, and 3 years later he's retired. How old was he then? Not couldn't have been that old.
31.
Okay.
Yeah, he retired young. But basically,
He
didn't have the
retired young by
motivation. He said he didn't have the motivation anymore, and his shoulder was shot.
Okay.
That's what he says. But that's the same year that he beat Federer in Miami, and he also won 2 titles. So he was still playing at a good level. He got to the 4th round of US Open, and he pushed Del Potro.
Okay.
So yeah, it was interesting that I remember being pretty surprised. I'm like, what? You're already retiring? Like you've fallen off a little bit, but not like that much.
Yeah.
But I guess yeah, he.
But to achieve the goals that he would have wanted, which would have been another slam.
Yeah, he was far away from that. So
I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have that determination to come back from this shoulder situation and beat these 3 guys that we all know. Well, 4 in that moment, probably with Andy Murray. Yeah, I know you mentioned the Miami situation, but to win a Grand Slam is going to need more than a one-off result. I think what's going on with your opponents can make that decision. I think Rafa was shot as well, but also looking at Yannick and Carlos and thinking.
And also another thing Rafa said in that interview is that after the Olympics, he said, "I'm done."
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
that was revealing, right? I don't think I'd seen him say it like quite that frankly before.
Yeah. That match against Novak at times was a little bit jarring, a little bit. The second set, obviously there was
6-1 for love, and it didn't look. I think I knew it when he was going 3 sets in that tournament and he made the final.
Oh, in Sweden, was it?
The start where he was getting through those 3 setters against Navone and in the quarters, which was like 4 hours, and then he lost a set to Djokovic. And you just kind of knew. And when he loses to Borges 3-2, or when he's playing that match against Fucsovic in the first round of RG, and he's almost losing that 3rd set in the beginning, and it's just like, I felt like that was a sign that he wasn't gonna be competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's still
and part of me also wonders what happens if he doesn't get injured against Jordan Thompson in Brisbane.
Yeah, I thought about that. I think he has it depends on the draw, because of course he could have drawn Novak first round in Australia that year. But if he had a decent draw, he certainly could have made the 3rd, 4th, or even maybe the quarters again, draw dependent.
I mean, obviously he was not playing great opponents, but like the matches against Team and
and Jordan Thompson for almost 2 sets. I mean, he had match points.
Yeah. I think if he closes that out in 2, he doesn't get hurt, and then.
Well, he doesn't get hurt then, but I mean,
but the way it was going, it was like maybe eventually it would happen. So.
Oh yeah, it would have happened. It just would have.
So maybe
as soon as
not so much of a sliding doors.
As soon as he gets pushed to a 3rd set there, or if he's in a 4th set somewhere in Australia.
Yeah. And then also it would have been tougher. He would have had to play Runa or Dimitrov, and even in that tournament.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think he would have won that tournament. Although I do remember one person, it might have been Dimitrov, as Muchova gets on the board with an ace. I do think one player at that tournament said Rafa's the favourite to win this. I forget who it was, but it was just at the beginning of the tournament, maybe, or after the first round. Yeah, he might not have won that tournament, but even if he beats Thompson and then goes out even in straight sets in the next round, it's enough for you to go, wow, this is certainly on a good trajectory right now. This is not Australian Open winning trajectory, but it is second week at Australia if the draw is okay, which given his obviously non-ranking, if you like, at the time.
It kind of reminded me of, again, the Federer parallel. Like he comes back in Doha, which is 13 months later, and then he like plays one good match against Dan Evans. And then he plays he gets 2 wins and 1 against Evans, and then after that he has match points against Basilashvili. But like it ages well because Basilashvili has a good year, but at the same time it's like when is he going to play again? And then he doesn't play again until Roland Garros. Kind of the same with Geneva, and it's kind of the same with Rafa. We didn't see him on court until Barcelona. So it was a long time, man. Yeah,
I think there's a few times that we all sort of drew parallels with Roger.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
21 for Roger for Rafa was maybe a bit like 16 for Roger. You know, with basically writing off the second half of his season and kind of just going one more time in 22, and then obviously 22 and 17. I saw Gil Gross. I think might have been asked this question, and he was posed basically the question of which season was the more impressive. But the reason he got asked that question was because they're both very similar. So the first half of 22 for Rafa and the first half of 17 for Roger, a lot of similarities, you know, with the resurgence, with winning in Australia and unbeaten runs and blah, blah, blah. It actually is quite an easy answer in the end, but you can understand why the question was there. But the answer was and is Roger in 17. Although Roger, of course, doesn't win the French, but I think it might have even been, that question might even have been up until April of that year or something. I don't remember. Because does Roger do the Sunshine Double in 17?
He does. Yeah. He gets off to the best start that's the best start he ever had to the career. Actually, that was true for Rafa also, but then he wins the Sunshine Double. And then he ends up winning so much. He wins 7 titles. It was very surprising. But apart from that,
Rafa, when he loses that final to Taylor Fritz, he looks disconsolate. It almost surprised me with how disappointed he was about that. I just think that he thought that basically...
that final also reminds me of the one that Federer played against Zverev in Montreal.
Okay.
Since they were both compromised.
Yeah, I think Rafa just felt like an 80% fit. Obviously, Taylor beats him later that year in... at the ATP finals. They actually had 3 interesting matches that year, obviously with the Wimbledon match too. But yeah, I just think that Rafa thinks that he at 80% probably in those conditions beats Taylor. And that would have been, I mean, he could lose a couple of clay court matches as he goes on to do, but if he wins Indian Wells, wins the French as he did, stays healthy at Wimbledon, I still think for Nadal to beat Kyrgios, even 100% fit, to beat Kyrgios and Djokovic back to back. Before that tournament in 22, by the way, Gil Gross tipped Rafa to win Wimbledon. I think he tipped him to beat Novak in the final. He certainly tipped him to win Wimbledon. So that would have been his 3rd slam in a row, you know?
Oh, wow.
I still think it would have been a tall, although I don't think Djokovic, that was a long way from his, most impressive Wimbledon, performances that in 2022. But
yeah,
we'll never know. I think Rafa beating Kyrgios would have been a 50-50 probably. I saw him.
If he was healthy, I would still pick Nadal.
Yeah, I saw him practice about 3 hours before the announcement that he was going to withdraw from the tournament, and it looked awful. And I saw that as it happened, and I thought,
I was in India at the time when I watched the whole fifth set, him and Fritz.
oh
And
yeah,
I remember telling my dad in India, I was like, I don't think he's gonna play the semifinal. It's gonna be a walkover. And I get to the airport and I'm about to go back to San Diego.
Uh-huh.
And then I find out he's pulled out. And I was like, oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, the injury flaring up in the first set. Taylor also maybe not playing the best tennis or smartest tennis of his life either. And then Rafa doing what Rafa does and having just an incredible forehand day, partly perhaps inspired by the fact that he was compromised. You can't be putting slices like that into the net, Muchova. Yeah. But then that injury flares up, but he does come through. But his post-match press conference as well was glum, considering he just won in 5 sets against Taylor Fritz. He was glum. He was kind of glum throughout the tournament. I think he may have been worried about it flaring up. I asked Tony, with hindsight and all the rest of it, about maybe he should have pulled out of that match against Taylor, but Tony gave the obvious answer, which is ifs, buts, and maybes, and that same grit and determination took him to 22 Grand Slam titles. So
yeah,
and it took him to a 5-set win that day.
Yeah. Well, at least, he gave the walkover in the semis. Yeah, I remember thinking actually that when Federer had a similar type of thing against Sandgren at the Australian Open in 2020,
I
remember. I remember thinking like, don't play the match against Novak. Withdraw.
Yeah.
Like you're obviously not fit.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised he actually went on court. And made a good go of it. Almost won the first set, but you knew it, after he lost the first set, you knew it was going to be over in straights.
Talking of which, we've got Love 40 now on the Muchova serve. The beatdown I feared is close to it. Took a risk on that second serve, and it still wasn't enough. Yeah,
that was not a competitive first set, gotta say.
How competitive is Watanuki and Griegspoor looking?
It's still on serve. No break points yet.
Okay.
Actually, no. I take that back. There was one break point in the last game.
Okay. So we just got 2 matches on at the same time, right? It's Muchova, Griegspoor, Watanuki.
Yeah. So it looks like we have 8 matches today, 5 of which are on stadium and 3 on the second court.
Well, it's called Centre Court and Stadium Court. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Stadium 1.
Okay. Did you see much of Shapovalov against Carlos?
I did, yeah. I saw the whole thing. And actually, it was interesting because the first 3 of the first 4 games went to deuce. And then, when he broke for 5-love and he didn't take that set at love.
Yeah.
I had a feeling, oh wow, the second set is going to be competitive. Because I just felt like Shapovalov was, making his way into the match. He was, he wasn't doing bad. He just wasn't converting on the big points.
At 5-love, sorry, Carlos was he serving for it at 5-love? I think he was.
Yeah, he was serving for a bagel.
Yeah, and he got broken, and then Shapo holds, and then
but Shapovalov showed a lot of grit in that game, and he won this amazing point at 30-all.
Yeah.
Where Alcaraz somehow gets this ball back. That was
I know.
Back. And then they reset the rally, and Dennis actually comes out on top, and I was like, okay, maybe the second set will be really hard fought. And it was for about the first 6 games, and then when Alcaraz broke for 3-all, then it was over. But
so I thought that match would go the opposite direction. I thought Shapo would be super competitive from the beginning. I think is that the first time they played each other, or certainly.
No, they played in Roland Garros. I think 23. They played in Roland Garros.
Okay, but still, I thought lefty and Shapo's in best form he's been in for maybe his entire career, but certainly for a long time.
Yeah,
and I just
the problem though with Sorry, no, go
Go
ahead.
on.
I was just gonna say the problem with Shapovalov is that I just wasn't seeing anything he does better than Alcaraz. Like I was thinking about it, I was like, what does he actually have here that's better?
There was one
I couldn't think of
return, a
anything.
backhand return he did that didn't get made on the highlights reel probably, but I from Shapovalov, and I still don't know how he did it. It was just nuts. It was a nuts backhand return down the line, and it was just one of the best returns I've seen all year, or maybe for longer. But yeah, I'm not saying he's a better returner than Carlos. Yeah, there's probably nothing specific he does better, but I just thought he might be able to do a few things that might just. He's obviously must be feeling very confident right now. He he's a lefty. It's only the second time they've played each other. I thought that Carlos might need 5, 6, 7 games to sort of feel his way in, but it was the absolute opposite. And as you say, it could have and should have been away. That rally, by the way, that 30-all rally, when that gets reset, I'm thinking Carlos is winning this rally.
Yeah, me too. I thought so as well.
Yeah. It was actually slightly unusual, but he then falls to the ground at the end of it, and so that may have prompted the error in the fact that he was just so tired.
Right. Okay, that's a great point from Muchova at 30th off. Yeah, she did it off with a dropper, but yeah. Yeah, Muchova right now against Coco and Iga. It's been rough for her.
Yeah, Coco and who was the other one? Iga and Coco and who?
Coco and Iga. It's interesting how much she struggles against Coco and Iga versus
Coco especially.
Versus Sabalenka, she has a 3-0 head-to-head.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those wins since 2023.
And of course, it was a Muchova Pegula US Open semi-final to see who would play Sabalenka. And I can tell you you and I know it as fans and people that watch tennis and comment on the sport, but I can also tell you that Sabalenka and her team were very keen to play Pegula in that US Open final.
Yeah.
I think I put the question of something along the lines of, I mean, do you think you had a sort of vested interest, or there's no doubt we had a particular preference as to who was to win that semi-final, and that was enough for me to know, of course, that they wanted Pegula to win it. And I mean, Sabalenka on a hard court in a slam final might still be just too much for Muchova, but you can see why they were a bit fearful of her. A Muchova Sabalenka Wimbledon final, now that would be fun.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going big on Muchova this Wimbledon. I kind of am too. I'll take a big let's see how she plays until then, but I feel like
a long way away,
Maybe people just love the parallels that Krejcikova won it last year, Vondrousova won it the year before, so it feels like Muchova is due.
Yeah, but Muchova would be the more natural one. Muchova would be more normal than those two.
That's where she first made her runs, 2019 and 2021. Those were the first 2 big slam runs Muchova had. Quarters.
I think there was a weird one where she went out in the first round, maybe in 22.
Well, last year she was just coming back. I know she lost to Badosa in the first round.
Yeah, it might be. It might have been 23. She went out in the first round, maybe it's 23, and it sort of went under the radar. And it was, I can't remember who she lost to. It wasn't Kudermetova, was it?
Oh yeah. No, she did lose. She lost in. Did she play Wimbledon in 2023?
One of the years she played it. Yeah, Niemeyer, who of course.
I remember the last years. Oh, was it Niemeyer?
Yeah,
Okay.
Niemeyer got to
that.
the quarters and lost to Tanya Maria, who made the semis. Yeah, Niemeyer is a great grass court player.
Yeah. Not somebody who wanted to draw in the first round, but that's.
But still, that was sort of a sort of result that I think many people were like, okay, Muchova comes through that, she should have a good run, and then she's out, and that's that. And that's just a couple of months later, she's in a US Open semi-final, of course, against Coco Gauff.
Yeah,
that went
through. I also feel like Iga, in some ways, like just enjoys this matchup. Also, like she likes the way she's being challenged, whereas against the straight big hitters, she looks a lot more stressed.
Yeah.
Because Muchova just makes it kind of fun for the opponent as well.
Yeah.
She has that effect, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Whereas when Rybakina is slamming down aces and
Yeah.
forehand winners, that's not fun.
No.
By the way, Greek Sport had a break point in this game.
Okay.
But Botanuki is just still playing with that same kind of joy. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up 5-4. I tell you what, most people came expecting a Tiafoe. They came expecting a Tiafoe show. It reminded me in some ways of the. I know it's a different dynamic because it was 2 Americans, but it reminded me of the Shelton match at the U.S. Open in the sense that
in the one that Shelton
completely took away the thunder.
Yeah, the one that Shelton won in 23. Yeah.
Yes. Because Tiafoe was mostly a bystander the whole night, and actually by the end. Well, actually, even before in the first set, but mostly by the end, the crowd was basically all with Watanuki.
Watanuki, I think, said on court afterwards, or someone has said, either Watanuki or someone from his team, has said that Ferreira, one of the sort of, little tidbits of advice was just don't get involved in any, don't ignore him, ignore Francis, ignore any potential show stuff going on there, and that's a good start, if you like. Muchova,
by the way, big table here, 15-40.
Yeah.
But saves one.
Yeah, this is even by the. I thought Iga would win. I think I said to Damien, I think she'll win with sort of one break in each set, or 6-3, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, whatever.
By the way, the other thing that made me think, the other thing that I saw in the Rafa interview that was interesting. That swing volley is going to go out, so that is
brutal.
Costly game. Yeah, that's very costly. But the other thing, I was just thinking this with reference to Iga, because Iga struggled right now with the clay to grass transition, and she struggled keeping her motivation high during that period between Roland Garros and Wimbledon, right? Whereas Rafa said he enjoyed that. He enjoyed the challenge of the transitioning.
Yeah.
And that he would often show up at Queens, like literally the day after. And he said in 2005, he kind of was like, I was a teenager. I just won Roland Garros. And, I maybe just didn't think that highly of my abilities on grass. But then, but he turned that around so quickly. So it was almost like he had no choice.
I'm pretty sure in 2008, he wins. So it didn't come up in that interview, but I've heard it elsewhere. In 2008, he wins the French Open against Roger. And I think he's on a practice court at Queens before dark.
I remember this.
In fact, it's a little bit wet, and he's just like convincing the ground stuff. I just want to practice. So he's won the French Open, I guess, by mid to late afternoon, or probably by mid-afternoon, because it was a pretty quick affair against Roger. With the 1 hour time difference, you can jump on the train and you can be there in an hour. It's actually a 2-hour journey from Paris, because I think he got the train, by the way, rather than some sort of fancy private jet, because I think Tony's said that they got the train. And he's on the practice court by the way, sunset in the UK around that time of year is about 8-9 o'clock. So you've got plenty of time to play with. And he's on a practice court on grass the same day he's won the French Open at Queens.
Yeah. So, and back then you only had 2 weeks in between the, end
That's
of
right. So it's even more important to, get going.
So maybe in a way, like if it was 2 weeks again, that would force somebody like Iga to just, right away, next day. It's also tougher for Iga because now that the Masters are 2 weeks. So like Rome 2 weeks, Madrid 2 weeks. So like that 7 weeks feels really exhausting.
Yeah.
Whereas, but at the same time, she does have 1 more week. So it's like, she should play a warm-up. I would say at least play a warm-up.
Yeah, I mean, she played Bad Homburg and then famously pulled out, didn't she, at the quarters stage?
Yeah, but at least she got a tournament in, whereas last year she didn't play anything. So, but I think this year they're really keen to target it, so that'll be interesting. That's also where the Wimfoset partnership, I think, will tell us more.
Okay,
I'm hoping.
Yeah, Did you see that little video clip of her in one of the tournaments in the Middle East? I'm going to say Dubai, but it could have been Doha, where she loses her match and basically blanks Vim for set as he puts his hand out to her. I don't know if you've seen that little clip.
Oh, like where he doesn't shake the hand, but she doesn't shake the
Yeah.
hand after the end.
I think she more. It was a little bit more. I don't want to. I'm not going crazy into it, but it wasn't
Yeah,
just.
I don't know if that tells us anything. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's just heat of the moment, frustrated after the loss.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious about this coaching change and whether it will bring about the success that she desires.
Well, I'll tell you, that was an emphatic love hold by Watanabe, so he's up 6-5.
Okay.
Could have a tiebreak here.
And Iga is also emphatic at the moment. And by the way, she's lost 5 games so far, Iga, and she's almost in the quarterfinals.
And she was on a streak where it was 2-all against Garcia, so she wins 6-2. So she wins 10 games in a row there.
Okay.
And then she goes up 6-0. I want to say 2-0. So then that's another. So she was on 3-0. So she was on a 19-game win streak. And then finally, Yastremska gets 2 games
against Garcia and Yastremska. And we all know where Garcia is now compared to say 2 or 3 years ago, but still. And then Yastremska is someone that Iga, of course. Did she lose to her where'd she lose to her? Or did she go? Did she go 3 sets with her? Somewhere recently they've played in the last year or so.
Yastremska?
I thought Yastremska had played.
No, they played in Dubai, and it was a very tight first set. It was close, 7-5, 6-love.
Oh, okay.
So
That's okay. Maybe I'm thinking about the first set in Dubai. Yeah, I was also thinking of Miami, but then Miami was Noskova, wasn't it? Or who beat her in Miami?
That was Alexandrova, but the Noskova match was after she beat Noskova. Yeah, like 6-4 in the third.
Yes.
Yeah.
Miami, maybe the one tournament that sort of Sabalenka, Rybakina, less so maybe Coco, but Iga, all 3 of those, Rybakina, Iga, and Sabalenka, should go into it with some confidence. I mean, here it's like, okay, it's Iga. You go to Wimbledon and it's not Iga. You go to Roland Garros and Iga's there again, if you like. You go to Australia and it's not Iga.
Yeah, or somebody else wins. Like, I mean, Rybakina has made the final the last 2 years.
Absolutely. But those 3...
I'm surprised Sabalenka hasn't done better in Miami.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
She hasn't even made a semi. So I feel like that's something.
Yeah, that's unusual.
That should change, I think. But Sabalenka as well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she does, because her draw is really open. Like it's really opened up. I don't think she's playing anybody in the top 20 until like the semis or something. It's pretty, like, most of the names in her section are gone.
Yeah.
For this tournament at least. Like, she plays Sone Cartel next, who's a lucky loser and has had a good run and everything, but you think it probably ends for Cartel there, and then she plays she could either play Samsonova or Paulini, which would be the first real test. That's in the quarter.
Who is Iga's potential quarterfinalist, by the way?
Either Zhang or Kostyuk.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So looks like Muchova might get a game.
Yeah, good. I mean, it's still just one break in this set, of course. Yeah. But the Iga, I think especially Kostyuk, although Damien doesn't rate Iga's chances against Zhang either, here at least, and the Zhang that we see today rather than 6 to 12 months ago. But I still think just because of their history, Zhang might think there's a chance that Zhang pushes Iga, because Damien was basically saying that Iga just doesn't even get pushed in Indian Wells at the moment. I mean, her run to the title last year didn't drop a set, I don't think. 4-all against Sakkari, as you mentioned in the final. Maybe that was as close as it got to losing a set. I don't really recall too much that troubled her there. This year, she's barely dropping games en route to the quarterfinals, as it seems like at the moment. And he said that, hopefully we get her against Rybakina or Andreeva in the semi, and then against Coco or Sabalenka in the final. And then even if she doesn't get pushed in those two matches, at least we go into them with some anticipation.
Yes, it seems like the semis might be the biggest test, and
he
actually
even said he thinks it might be a bigger test than the final. Of course, it depends on who she plays in the final, but
maybe.
I mean, if it's Sabalenka in the final, and Sabalenka, if she's got to when Sabalenka gets to the final of these tournaments, it's like, okay, all right, she's here. Sometimes these tournaments, you just wonder about her in the early rounds. I think she's had a pretty kind draw so far in Indian Wells. Who is Sabalenka potentially playing in the quarterfinals? I think you might have just said it, actually.
Karolina or Samsonova.
Okay, so Samsonova could be interesting. And who was the other player I want to know about at this time? Oh, yeah, Madison Keys. She came through, of course, in 3 sets against
Mertens.
What's her path then? She's obviously in the opposite side, so she's in the same side as Sabalenka. Is that a possible semi-final, Sabalenka Keys?
That's possible, yeah, but she would have to play. She'd have to beat Vekic, I think, in the 4th round, and then the winner. So her quarterfinal opponent is either Goff or Bencic.
Okay.
So we could have Keys versus Goff in the quarters.
Yeah.
Could have. I mean, Goff really stepped up against Sakari in terms of her, like at least minus the last game. She played really well.
Yeah, that last
game was awful from both, like just awful.
Yeah,
stuff.
It was. I mean, Sakari.
For Sakari not to break back in that game is criminal. Like 6
it is.
Points,
There's also one point that was criminal, which was she must have had a forehand because I can see it on the court right now. She dumps into the net somehow.
And Sakari is going to be like tumbling down the rankings now. Like I think with this result, she's like outside the top 50 or something.
But that's been kind of coming. I think she probably quite likes it in the desert and may have been hoping that she could make a deep run again here this year. But that has been coming. It was like how she
last year I really enjoyed watching her in Indian Wells, Miami. Like she plays that really good quarterfinal against Rybakina. She's
me too
playing well in the clay court season, like nothing crazy, but she's winning a couple of matches every week. But then she loses first round of the French, and now you're like, okay, that was not a good loss.
Right.
And then the majors, and then I think the arm started bothering her the second half of the year, so you can pretty much ignore that. But then
you got the timeline exactly the same as my mental side of things with Sakari. It was like, wow, are we seeing maybe not quite a final flourish because she's still not that old, but bearing in mind how the previous couple years have gone, and she won a 1,000, didn't she, in Mexico? Was it?
2023.
At the end of 2023 or towards the end of 23, she scrapes into the WTA finals that year. And as you say, the first few months last year, Australia wasn't great, but
by the way, Watanuki just did an insane point to go a 4-2 in the tiebreak.
Okay, cool.
Which is this really excellent volley at the net. And now he has mini break, and he was returning so poorly the rest of the first set. Like Greek Sport was just holding very comfortably. But then this tiebreak now he gets the mini break.
Okay, this is important because Iga's got up 4-1, so still one break there, but looking very comfortable. And Greek Sport's not looking comfortable, but he does win the next point. So it's a mini break advantage there for Watanuki. What was that return you said that was a bit funky? Or was the point that was a bit crazy?
Yeah, no, 3-2. He plays a very good point, and he gets the break. And just plays more orderly. But yeah, he takes huge risks on the return. He'll step in and just crush first serve returns, take full cuts, even though they're coming right at his body. And he's got this this stance that reminds me. I don't know if you've ever watched Kung Fu Panda.
No, I haven't. No.
There's something that's like a warrior pose. So he does that on the return. And he's just taking the return so early. It's crazy. It's not something you see very often. You see it on
these are some images I have after a quick Google of Kung Fu. I don't see him doing any of those on the turn, but I guess the most likely one would be that Kung Fu kick. But there we go. Or maybe he's rubbing his hands as well.
But then he just gives it away with another error. And this is what was happening against Tiafoe. He was playing all the points really well, but then the break points he would just miss.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of it could go either way with him. You don't know what's coming. It's 4-3. He misses this forehand badly and he just starts laughing.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse.
Oh, but this time Greek Spore uses a slice and he makes Watanuki generate all the pace on the forehand. And Watanuki cracks. So Greek Spore now has the break.
Yeah.
Wow, Iga is just steamrolling.
Yeah.
This is another backhand winner down the line.
Have you got two screens, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely backhand on the line. And as for Greek Spore and Watanuki, from 4-2, things kind of unraveled. Yeah. Does that feel, I don't want to get too carried away having not seen a point, but does that feel like the match?
Could be. I still think it'll be a tight second set with the way they both play, but yeah, you'd kind of expect Greek Sport to win now. I mean, we both picked him before, but yeah, felt like that first set was going to be important.
Yeah. Considering how dominant Iga has been, it's actually only 12-8 to her in the winners count. So Muchova's still hitting a few winners.
Yeah. Now she's just trying to do something different. Come in, serve and pick up, come in on you. Just throw a different look, but it just feels like Iga's ready for everything, There's nothing surprising her anymore in this matchup. That surprise element is all gone.
Yeah.
It feels like she's exactly very prepared.
But she's just also not doing enough there, Muchova, on that 15-30 point.
Yeah, it just feels like the execution for Muchova has to be like perfect, whereas Iga just has a lot more margin.
Yeah. But there was that volley into the net. She still probably should have made it. I think she felt as though she hadn't done enough on the previous point, and it's like, oh, I've not done enough here. As it was, Iga probably didn't do enough herself to win the point outright, but Muchova almost felt like she wasn't going to win that point anyway.
And also no break points for Iga on the serve. Hasn't faced a single one.
Yeah. Yeah, that does.
Which normally, even in the really dominant Iga matches, you still get like one time where she gets broken or she has an officer's game. Nothing like that today. Oh, again, it's the right idea to go down the line there on the forehand, but it's just high risk, too big, and dumps it in the net. So 6-1, 5-1. Yeah, this really was the least intriguing of their matches for sure. It's hardly a match.
I'm back. Sorry.
All right, you're back. Yeah.
She's not getting the first serves in either, is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Which is putting them in trouble immediately. And yeah, I didn't see it being quite this one side. I would be interested to know if some of those physical issues that you highlighted she suffered from her previous match have been carried over.
Maybe. To be honest, she's in the rallies, but she's just not able to finish them. And when she does, she's going too big or she's not being as clinical. Mostly Iga's just not letting her do it either. But, wow.
Ooh. Has there been a few spots of rain in the Greek Sport Watanuki match? Or has there been an injury?
Rain?
Or I just see suspended
Let me
on my
see.
screen.
I think I think Greek Sport has just gone off the court.
Okay. All right.
Suspended. Okay, maybe it's
what Google is saying, but Google can be wrong. So
no,
that return from Muchova is like what could have been.
Yeah, kind of sums up her whole day, actually. So yeah, that was very, very uncompetitive.
Yeah. Wow. I probably thought it would be a bit like it was it Sydney they played or Brisbane somewhere earlier this year?
Yeah, I was expecting something like, I don't know, maybe 3-3, 3-4, but not like this. Well, it's a good first serve, and wow, that was largely uncompetitive. I think they're pretty good friends, so they're gonna have a good exchange at the net. Yep. But wow, it was a statement.
It's a statement again. It's just another 2 games. She's just losing 2 games in a match at the moment, which is nuts considering she's played Yastremska and Garcia in this round, of course, here Muchova. But yeah, another statement win in, as I say, arguably her best environment. Just because I think someone like Muchova, for example, at Roland Garros can push her a bit more. Naomi Osaka can push her at Roland Garros. She's unbelievably dominant there, of course, but here it feels like, maybe I'm just not remembering 2023 that much, but here it just feels like she's more dominant than even at Philippe Chatrier.
Yeah, she just looks so like at home and at peace here. Like, yeah, she just loves the environment and the conditions. The wind doesn't seem to really bother her. The extra spin, the profile of the court suit her really well. And it's just so hard to get her. Yeah, that extra, like the surface isn't playing any different to what it was the years before.
Oh,
like
that was something
there's been a lot of talk about that, but honestly, there's no difference. There's no change. Like most of the players think that too, I think, right?
Yeah, right. I think we were all thinking that. I think we all sort of expected it to play very, very similar, but we thought it might play a different enough for Carlos and Iga to be more vulnerable. Well, until now, they look as both of them, and maybe even more Iga in particular, look as at home as ever.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the quarters. Maybe Junction Wen can push her. Maybe. I think today's match with the Kostyuk will be a real barometer of where Zhang is at, because she beat Azarenka in the first round, but I kind of think Azarenka is like declining. Like I think maybe this is the last year where we really see her being a factor in the top 30 or something. And then she got a revenge win over Lulu's son, but I think this is a whole nother step up if she can beat Kostyuk and look convincing doing it. Then you might go into that match with some hope that it could be a competitive one.
Yeah.
Also because of their last meeting at the Olympics and some of the mental belief that Zhang has against Iga.
Yeah, I agree. Just gonna listen to what she's got to say. Yeah, she did take all her chances. It's a bit chilly there. I can see from the jacket bits she's adorning.
Coming out and playing tennis in front of so many fans here.
That's quite funny when he says that. No, this is not me having to go at tennis here, but in front of so many fans, and we could see about 25 people behind her. I have memories of that Kostyuk match from last year. That's another reason why I would like to see Zhang. Or at least I think Zheng is more likely to bring something to Iga a little bit different.
Okay, through to the quarterfinals once again. Let's hear it, ladies and gentlemen. Iga Swiatek.
There you go. Iga through in dominant fashion. Fingers crossed that Muchova doesn't take it too personally, because Iga is capable of doing that to pretty much anyone on the tour, especially here in Indian
That's
Wells.
what, six games dropped in 3 matches.
3 matches, yeah. That match feels like it was about an hour long. I could be wrong, but it must be about an hour, maybe even slightly. It's 57 minutes, I think I can see on the clock, actually. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any key stats we can take from that. Obviously, the WTA website.
No break points faced, really high first serve percentage.
Yeah.
You know, just very low winners to unforced errors.
Yeah.
Ratio.
And in the end, Muchova bringing her game wasn't quite enough. I do think that she might have just been a yard short of her best as well. And when you're a yard short of your best and you're playing Iga Swiatek in Indian Wells, then you are in big, big trouble. And as I say, 6-1, 6-1, she wins. Anyway, Vanch, I want to say a big thanks to you for joining us today. Make sure you give Vanch a follow on Twitter on his new account, or perhaps temporary account, but at Vanch v Tennis.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, Vanch v Tennis is the new one. Yep.
On the screen right now. Yeah, and I'm seeing the first serve in percentage 65% and points won on serve 76. But yeah, the winners count was pretty even, but just 4 unforced errors off the racket of Iga. So a very controlled performance from her.
These are the WTA stats, right?
These are coming up on my TV screen, almost certainly provided by WTA, yeah. But 4 unforced errors from her, and winning pretty much exactly double, 50 points to 26 overall. And yeah, she will await the winner of Kinwenje against Marta Kostyuk. We will also have a watch along for Tsitsipas against Runa. Fingers crossed that is a slightly more exciting affair than this one, and a bit more competitive. Vanch, myself, and Damien have all just gone on the side of, to some extent, gone on the side of Tsitsipas in terms of likelihood there, but I think it will be a competitive match, and I don't think it can be less competitive than this one, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that should be really fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. All right, Vanch, once again, thanks for joining me today, and we'll catch up again soon.
Yep, thank you. See you soon.
And to everyone else, you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.